right triangle trigonometry. So you can label this in your notebook with whatever page you are on. Whoops. Let's see. There we go. Got the right one now. So right triangle trig. And this is a review from last year. So hopefully you remember most of this stuff. And today we're going to be reviewing SOHCAHTOA. So if you guys remember, this is sine is equal to the opposite side over the hypotenuse. Cosine is equal to the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. And then tangent is equal to the opposite side over the adjacent. So if we take a look at a couple of the problems here, this first one, if we have our angle right here, this is obviously our hypotenuse. And then here's 37 degrees, so this is the opposite, so that's dealing with sine. So we can set it up that the sine of 37 equals x over 11. And then, well, how do we solve for x? We can multiply each side by 11. So we have 11 times the sine of 37 equals x. Now when you enter this into our calculator here, there's a couple things that we need to check. Why isn't that going away? We'll put it down here. All right, well, first of all, you got to clear your scratch pad. So remember, it's Doc B that clears your scratch pad. And we have to make sure it's in degree mode. In a couple days, we're going to start talking about a different type of measurement, radians, but today we're in degrees. So if you hit your Doc key, and then number 7, settings and status, document settings, you can see right here, or angle, it says radians. We need to go to that. We need to switch it to degrees. And then we can tab down and we can make that our default. And we can apply it to everything. So now we can type in what we had. Here's our trig key. So the sine of 37, make sure we arrow out of parentheses, times 11. And we have 6.62. Let's get this off the screen there. All right, so we have 6.62 is our answer. Now you'll notice this next one here on the bottom, we have an angle. We don't know what that is. We need to find the angle, but we're given our hypotenuse. And this side, well, this is the adjacent. Well, adjacent and hypotenuse, that's not sine anymore. That's the cosine. So let's see, and we're finding an angle. And if you remember from last year, to find the angle, we use the inverse key. So cosine negative 1. 11.8 over 13.5. So using that inverse key will give us the angle. So we can go back to the calculator here, and trig, you'll notice it's right underneath the cosine. And we can type in 11.8 divided by 13.5, and we have 29.06. And I lost it. Let's see if we can bring that back up. Sorry about that, guys. Here it is. All right, let me resize this here. I already forgot what angle. What did we say it was? 29.06. So this one here, 29.06 degrees. So when we take a look at this next one here, we need to find a side. So once again, we have the hypotenuse, but if our angle is here, this is the adjacent. So we have to use the A and H, the cosine again. So the cosine of 50 equals x over 35. And again, we need to solve for x, so we can multiply everything by 35. So 35 times the cosine of 50 equals x. Let's see, so 35 times trig cosine of 50, and we have 22.5. Taking a look at another one where we need to find the angle. If this is our angle, here's our hypotenuse, and we have our adjacent. So again, we're finding an angle, so we have to use the inverse functions. So cosine -1 of 15 over 24. That'll give us our angle. And I'm going to leave that for you guys to type in. We'll just do the setup on these. So this last one here of finding the side. If this is 32, this is the side that is opposite and adjacent. So O and A gives us tangent. So the tangent of 32, SOHCAHTOA, 36 over x. Well, let's see here. This one is an extra step to solve. We can fraction bust it here. So multiply by x. So we have x times the tangent of 32 equals 36. So to solve for x, we got to divide by the tan of 32 on each side. And that one, I just want to remind you, we'll be using this key more and more. Make sure on your calculator you use that fractions key. So control divide. No, gotta get there. There we go. Control divide. 36 divided by tangent of 32. We end up with 57.61 degrees. So we have 57.61 degrees. And then now I guess it's the very last one. We need to find an angle. So looking at this angle here, if here's our angle, here's our opposite side. This must be the adjacent. So opposite and adjacent tangent, again, but we're finding an angle, so we have to do the inverse. So tan -1 of 9 over 5. And typing that in, you should be able to find our angle. Now the very last thing we're going to talk about today is something new this year. We're going to be talking about the reciprocal functions. So not the inverse, but the reciprocal. And we talked about last semester how reciprocal means that you flip the fraction. So as of now, we have done 3 trig functions. We have said that the sine is opposite over hypotenuse. The cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And the tangent is opposite over adjacent. Well, there's 3 reciprocal functions for each one of these. So the first one is the cosecant of x. So instead of opposite over adjacent, it's hypotenuse, or opposite over hypotenuse, it's hypotenuse over opposite. The secant, which is hypotenuse over adjacent. And then there is the cotangent, which is adjacent over opposite. Now the only ones that make sense that are a pair to me are tangent and cotangent. So the other ones I always remember the letter switches. So the one that starts with an S goes with the cosecant. The one that starts with a C goes with the secant. So for example, if I said, let's say I said that the sine of x equals 5 over 6. And you need to find the cosecant. Oops, it's the CSC of x. Well, it's pretty easy. They're just reciprocal, so it would just be 6 over 5. You can do the same thing with decimals. Let's say we said find the cosine of x is 0.2, and you need to find the secant. Well, the easiest thing to do is 0.2. Well, that's 2/10, so 2 over 10. So the secant of x would be 10 over 2, which reduces down to 5.